Hello everybody, welcome back to another video here at Rule 1 Model Railways. Today we're going to be tackling the massive topic that is High Speed 2 and what I've learned from running Weston Parkway as a 4-track mainline automated. Stay tuned for more. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now you may be wondering why I decided to tackle such a big subject considering I'm only into model railways. Well, in the past I used to work on the railway, just only at railway stations, but I did get to see the inner workings of how the railway works. And from the automation process on this layout behind me on a 4-track mainline, just pretty much by trial and error I've worked out a lot of problems that there are on my own on the West Coast mainline as it stands at the moment, and why High Speed 2 is needed. So looking into the issues that we have currently, the main one obviously, West Coast mainline, is pretty much full to capacity. As I'm going to show you a video here that I did of Weston Parkway a little while ago. Just a little time-lapse video. It just gives you an idea of how currently the West Coast mainline is operating. So as you can see, we have small branch services adjoining and coming off of the main line. We have the local lines with the stopping services, and we have the intercity express services all running on the fast lines on the outside. This is pretty much how the West Coast main line works at the moment, especially for the southern end and the part in the Midlands. But it does come with its drawbacks, and I'm about to show you some of those in a moment. So if I draw your attention to this map here, we zoom in on Euston, the very beginning of the West Coast main line, we can see there are a lot of service coming out up as far as Watford Junction. Now this is okay in itself because this part of the line is a 6-track main line. You have 2 tracks for locals, 2 tracks for regional services, and 2 tracks for express services, so they can go and then come back down again as they need to. However, moving up to Wembley Central, because the capacity is such in demand for services that are further away than Wembley Central, the regional trains seldom stop there. Used to, when I worked there, in fact, only be once an hour, and for somewhere in London that's quite a poor service. Now our local trains actually stop as far as Watford Junction, so that's the London Overground that provides that service. Our regional trains run by London North Western Railways. They have the 350s there. And our Avanti West Coast trains continue past there, along with the southern services and the Caledonian Sleeper at night time. Now, if we move up the map, we're going to focus on Tring. Tring's quite a busy little town, just north of London. And they do get 3 services an hour. But the problem with their services is the fact that they can only have 3 services that come in one after the other, and their timetable looks something like this. So trains to London Euston, 1:19, followed by the 1:26, and another service to London Clapham Junction at 1:34. And then they have to wait almost half an hour, and they're all very squished up together within the hour, if that makes sense. They're not at a regular interval. And I want to show you how timetables are made. So this is the issue we have with the regional services. Because the cities, each end of the regional services, are requiring more capacity, they're actually taking out stops intermediate. So like train A here, so it only stops at the 2 end stations. Train B is what a typical regional train would look like. Stops at 3 of the 4 stations. And the local train would stop at 4. Now, the correct way to timetable them is on this graph here. Time and distance is measured here, and each line here is a station. So as a train goes along the line, this is an express service, as you can see, doesn't stop and gets to its destination here at station 4. Train B is the regional train, which stops at the first station, the origin, stops at the intermediate stop. This is the time it's just sitting there waiting at the platform, and then goes to the destination. Then you have train C, which is the local train, which stops at every station along the route. And you can see here the inefficiency this causes. The time it takes for the trains to all depart one after the other in sequence from the origin station is good. They all have their own path, but by the time they get to their destination, they've wasted lots of time between the services where you could have fit more trains in if they were all express services. And the same also applies if they were all local trains as well, or just one type of train, because they would all fit in nicely with each other. And this is the main problem with the West Coast Main Line, and the main reason for the issues it experiences. You can't mix in express trains, local trains, and freight trains and expect to have the most efficient service. It's impossible, it can't happen. So at the moment, we're making the best of a bad situation. Now, moving up to Milton Keynes, we actually drop one of the services. That's the southern services. They terminate there and go back again. So there's a little bit more capacity past that area, but the line divides here, 2 tracks to Northampton and 2 tracks direct to Rugby. So in effect, we now have 2 2-track main lines, with the regional services mostly going up through Northampton and the expresses just continuing through Rugby. The junctions themselves, a lot of them are level junctions as well, which means to get a train across the junction from Northampton, you have to cross all of the lines to then go into Birmingham, which then constrains capacity across the junction at Rugby. It's another inefficiency that could be avoided with a flyover and trains going underneath at the junction, but not without great expense. Which leads me on to the problem of Birmingham International and Birmingham New Street. These stations are currently at full capacity. There is no more space pretty much for any additional services to run in there. And if a delay occurs on the West Coast Main Line with a train coming in from each end, you can expect knock-on delays to following services behind those trains, or trains have to queue up to wait to get into Birmingham International or New Street as they're trying to all filter in. And what I want to talk about there is another issue we have with that area of the network. Is this line here. So this is a train service that runs from Birmingham International, Birmingham New Street, through Wolverhampton and Shrewsbury, all the way through to Aberystwyth. This service is mostly single track all the way through Wales, with some dotted passing points along the route. And the issue we have here is the first train that gets delayed when it's going into Birmingham and coming back out of Birmingham because of delays across the network elsewhere. We then have a problem that trains cannot catch up to the timetable because they have to wait for the train coming the other way to pass at these passing points. So it multiplies the delay across the whole line, and it's pretty much impossible to regain. And the train service on the Cambrian coastline, so it goes up to the Cambrian coast, and some trains even go up along the coast up to the terminus up this end. They only send one train every 2 hours, the full distance into Birmingham International, because there's just not the capacity for any more trains to run there. What's the answer to this? Well, High Speed 2 would help with that. We could then take trains off of the congested area in Birmingham and place all the express trains on their own dedicated line, as you can see here, which is the Broken Line. thus freeing up capacity and redundancy on the overcrowded section in Birmingham. So not only does it benefit the intercity services, the express services, it benefits the regionals and the locals as well, all across the Midlands. Now, the next problem we have, if we're moving up the West Coast main line that I spotted, again, say Tamworth, Polesworth, Atherstone, Nuneaton, all these places have had their stops removed on all the express services. Again, because capacity is required at the bigger city stations at the end of the line, so Liverpool and Manchester. There's just not enough capacity on board the trains as well to stop them at these places and expect them to cope. Moving up the line again, we can see from Birmingham, trains rejoin the West Coast main line, and the West Coast main line continuing on up north in two different directions. So Stafford is a big bottleneck on the West Coast main line. And I want to show you a video that I've got here of Weston Parkway, which will illustrate the problem we have with the level junctions. So as you can see, right here, we've got a train traversing level junction. That's this one here, the 67 and the coaches, the green one. And all of the main line and the slow lines here have had to stop to allow it to cross over. So to allow just for one junction, a train to come off of a secondary line onto the main line, it has to cross all four tracks, thus limiting capacity to that one train across four tracks. It's really inefficient again. As you can see, once it cleared, the other trains were free to proceed. So this one's gone, and that one's waiting for the headway now to continue. There we go, it now has the headway to continue. So that's a few paths there that are actually taken up on the West Coast main line because of that junction. And the way it's designed right now, that's unavoidable. You can't avoid that. Now, there are other places on the network that work incredibly well, and we're going to move over to one of those just as an example. Down here, C2C, that's this pink line running along, and it runs from Fenchurch Street, as you can see here, through the suburbs of London, Barking, Upminster, along the loop lines here, Purfleet, Grays, Tilbury Town, Ockenden, Pitsea, and out through Southend to Shoebury Ness. Now the beauty of that line is it's all self-contained pretty much. There are hardly any other services that use its lines, if at all. The only place that tends to get services run across it are freight trains coming in at Barking off the North London line here. That's the orange one. And they come down Dagenham Dock, Rainham, Purfleet, Grays into Tilbury to the docks there. That's pretty much all they have that come in onto their network. And year on year, C2C always seem to have the highest reliability and on-time trains. And the reason for that is because it doesn't have to share its tracks with all the different companies all vying for the track space and forwarding their delays onto C2C. It just doesn't happen. Again, self-contained networks have this benefit. And again, looking at the West Coast main line, we can see here that we have trains coming off of this line here through Wilston Junction. We have branch line coming on to Watford Junction. That one doesn't provide much traffic, mind. But this will be part of the East-West Rail link coming across that will have some impact. Junctions here into Birmingham and out of Birmingham, sharing lots of services coming through. And as we go further north, lots of services through Stafford we're having to share the line with. Stoke-on-Trent we're sharing the line with. Crewe we're sharing the line with lots of different services. And going up further north, Wigan, come into Northern Territory, we get loads of delays off of Northern and Trans-Pennine Express transposed onto West Coast mainline services from across the Midlands, the Pennines, you name it. The West Coast mainline is exposed to every sort of delay there is, all the way up into ScotRail territory. And again, in Manchester down here, High Speed 2 will eventually have its own station, and it will take off express trains running into Manchester onto those new lines, thus freeing up capacity for the Trans-Pennine Express services and the Northern services, and maybe some River Trains Wales services to also come in addition to what's already there. So you'll be able to increase regional connectivity, local connectivity all across the area, because you'll have more capacity to spare. And more reliability goes with that as well, so there's more redundancy on the network. So looking at High Speed 2, here's a map of High Speed 2 and how it's supposed to pan out. So Phase 1 will be built between London Euston and Birmingham. It's calling it Old Oak Common, Birmingham Interchange and Birmingham Curzon Street, with connections onto the Classic Line further north. Phase 2A will include additional high-speed line built up as far as Crewe and up through Manchester. Well, up to a line branching onto Manchester, sorry. That'll eliminate all the junction issues we have through Stafford and Crewe alike. And Phase 2B will bring trains right up into Manchester Piccadilly to the airport, alleviating the problems through all the junctions through Manchester, and also a spur from the Birmingham area through the East Midlands hub to hopefully help with some of the congestion on the central main line there and the East Coast main line up to York and Leeds. This will also have the impact of freeing up capacity on the trains between London and King's Cross via Peterborough up to York, and enable more regional and local trains to run on that section as well. So it really does help all of this area, in fact. And trains from Norwich currently run and Stansted run cross-country along this way. They will have all these express services taken out their way, and they'll run more reliably, and hopefully they can increase the frequency as well. So the benefits of having Old Oak Common. So if we move back to the London map, right the way down there again, Old Oak Common is actually a touch of genius in my opinion. Having trains coming down into Old Oak Common and stopping here allows people to change trains in Old Oak Common rather than entering the busy, overcrowded area in central London, and keeping it all confined to one purpose-built space. At Old Oak Common, people coming in off the the Great Western Main Line will be able to interchange with High Speed 2 without having to go into central London. They will also be able to interchange to go along into London to Euston, as well as just staying on their actual train going into Paddington. The benefit of that is they won't have to traverse the underground and then walk from Euston Square to Euston. It will just be delivered straight into Euston, completely mitigating the need to touch the underground in that compact area. This interchange also will have connections to Crossrail, which will provide services into Heathrow and through central London as well. So all the additional capacity that's required will be there, and we won't be adding additional traffic into the central London area on the existing network, which is already at capacity. So these are the reasons I think High Speed 2 is necessary. I'm not looking at the costs at the moment, just the ideas of it and why it should be there. If you have your thoughts and comments on it, do let me know down below, and we'll see what all your opinions are. But this is what I think and I'm going to leave you with some more running shots of that time lapse that I did earlier. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.